Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey everybody, Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast. Really glad to be on today. I'm excited for this episode to be able to drop. We are going to learn so much from Matthew here in just a moment. Before I introduce him, I want to give a shout out to my company because it sponsors this podcast, Moxie Pest Control. And specifically in that we are growing. Our message, I guess, to the country is that we're growing, we're continuing to grow. We've been so blessed and so fortunate the last couple of years to experience some of that same sort of growth like many people have. But the way that we've been doing it has been part of the way has been via acquisition. And so specifically in Phoenix, Tucson, Cincinnati, Columbus, Kansas City, St. Louis, those types of markets, if you're looking to maybe understand and know what the next chapter of your life looks like, or you're looking to golf more, work less, we would certainly love to learn more about you. And you can reach out to me directly on my cell. It's 480-254-9730. You can also email me directly at aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. We would certainly love to talk to you about what that might look like. The bubble has burst, but it's still really, really high. And so, and Matthew, we might get into this, but he started with 4 franchise territory and locations, or 1 rather, got up to 6, just sold 2 back 2 days ago. And so he has a little bit of this M&A experience as well and knows kind of what that looks like. But multiples are really, really high right now, and we're paying top dollar, and we love to have those conversations. Super excited to be able to have Matthew on today. As we've kind of gotten to know each other just in the last 10, 15 minutes as we've briefed, he is a 7-figure business owner. He started about 7 years ago with his dad at a Mosquito Joe's franchise. Like I said, they built it from 1 to 2, then 3, then 4, then 6. They just dumped or got rid of 2. And so it is really exciting to be able to speak to him about some of his experience and what that path has looked like. He also has a really unique background, not just in education, but also in the athletic world and coaching. And I think that we might get into some of how that mindset has transferred over to business for him as well. Matthew, thank you so much for being on today. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you for carving out time. I know that it's very
Absolutely.
limited for you, and you're very, very busy. And so it's really great to have you on. Maybe the first thing that we can get into is, franchising. I think most people understand what that is or how that works. You educated me a little bit earlier about what is considered a territory at Mosquito Joe's, but how did that come about for you? I mean, is it something you and your dad had always wanted to do? Was he doing it first and needed help because it was growing, and you decided? How did all that come about, and what led to making those decisions for you?
So as I was coming up as a kid, there's a Jay-Z line, "I'm a hustler, homie." That was my identity as a hustler. I always had side hustles. I was always entrepreneurial minded and spirited. And it was just, my identity came from that. I didn't really have experience in running or operating a business, a legitimate business. It was always just side gigs. Now, my dad, he's worked at Apple Computer worked my whole life. He's now retired and he's full-time in our business, but he worked at Apple for 22 years before we acquired our first Mosquito Joe territory. The thing that I like the most about franchising is that it provides people with an opportunity to follow a blueprint. Not everybody really understands the ins and outs of creating a brand, building up your service offerings, the systems that are needed to scale. You might be good at a task. For example, if you can decorate cookies, then you can, somebody might really love how they taste and how you do your artwork. But in order to scale that is extremely difficult. You have to rely on other people. The franchise So it basically gives you the opportunity to scale a business where otherwise you'd really have a hard time doing so. So there's no way I would know what I know in business as an entrepreneur if I hadn't started with the franchise model. The thing that, I've only been in one for now. My goal is to grow, and we're looking at other models and things that we can do specifically around the home service space, but we're not limited there. There's a lot of really cool franchise opportunities out there if you know what you're looking for and if you have a strong vision. But it was a great place to start. And Mosquito Joe, there's a lot of great franchisees that have offered support, and you're not competing. You're not competition with these other franchisees. And so there's really no reason not to provide as much help and tips and tricks of the trade, anything that somebody might have found out in New York. I mean, people have been very willing to assist us out here in Dallas and just be the best we can be to represent the brand. So franchising has been a great opportunity. Now you got to be aware of, the royalties and the things that come with it. It's pricey, but a lot of people in the E-Myth, he talks about people having the entrepreneurial seizure and wanting to work for yourself and do your own thing. The mistake is just going in, just trying to do it all by yourself from the jump, and you get stuck as a technician forever, right? The franchise model allows you to work in and around that. And so it's been a great experience for us.
Well, and I think that it also has like some of those safety nets, if you will, built in. If you're not ready to go, as you said, kind of referencing the E-Myth, Michael E. Gerber's E-Myth, from technician to kind of doing it all on your own. A franchise is great because the website's there, the brand is there, the SOPs are there. And so sometimes that may just be a better step for some people. No, that's
Absolutely.
really great. So the other thing, so you've been doing this for since about 7 years, since 2016 or so.
That's right.
And in the last couple of years, you guys have experienced a lot of growth. Well, why is that? How did that happen? What do you attribute that to?
Wow. So it'd be nice to say that we got all that growth just because we're really good at what we do. In 2018, we did acquire 2 additional territories that are in our DFW region. So we went from servicing, at the time, we were servicing about 200 customers on a repeat schedule. Mosquito Joe has a recurring service model, to about 650 overnight. It was
just
immediate.
Like that.
Oh, man. And we had to grow fast, and we paid, my dad calls it idiot tax. We paid a lot of idiot tax as we tried to figure our systems out. But we figured it out, and we were really diligent in making sure that we provided a high quality service. And just being entrepreneurial minded, you got to be fast on your feet, and you got to be willing to get your hands dirty. And I've never been afraid of that. My team's never been afraid of that. So it's part of our culture, and I'm really proud of it. In 2020, COVID hit, and everybody was worried about what was going to happen. Now, pest control was considered an essential service, and so we didn't have to shut our doors. What happened was a lot of people were now sent home. They had to work from home, and they were spending a lot more time in their home, but also outside. Luckily for us, because we're more of a niche service, not just general pest control, but mosquito control on top of that, a good chunk of our customers pay for general pest and for expert mosquito control on top of that. So these are people that not only got to keep their job, they're in the 10% that were also able to work from home without missing a beat. And so it was a higher level of income service. So we didn't really see the drop initially. So more people home, our calls skyrocketed. Another effect that we didn't really consider or think was going to happen, the talent pool and the people that we were able to hire drastically shot up, because now you had these individuals who, PE teachers, they worked at restaurant, upper level, not just entry level, but maybe they graduated from college or they just got out of high school and they were looking for,
and they needed a job.
Some higher level stuff, but they needed a job. And so we were able to snatch these people and really build a culture around talent that I wasn't able to get my hands on before. And that attributed massively to our growth in the last few years.
So I know another thing that we talked about that you kind of lit up as we were, and we'll get into your athletics here in just a minute, but I know in the last year or so, you've become a lot more involved in EOS, traction. You seem to be developing quite a bit more in the last several months as a leader. Could you speak to some of those points and what that journey has been like for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, eventually you're going to grow and you're going to grow and you're going to grow. And one day you're either going to burn out or you're going to hit a ceiling, and you have to reassess what's important to you and why you're doing any of it, you know? And I hit that point actually in 2019. My wife and I lost our daughter, and
Sorry to hear about that.
It was one of the hardest things that has ever happened to my family. And when it did, we had to fully reevaluate everything that we were doing. And in that process, I started picking up books. It wasn't all self-help books. I think the first book I read was, Life of Pi. Was, one of the ones that I'd always wanted to, but, I went into a deep, dark cave and I didn't come out, and eventually just started picking up some books, and the fiction turned into some nonfiction, turned into some self-help, which turned into business and leadership. And the E-Myth, again, one of my favorites, he talks about being on the business and not just in the business. And I'd always known that concept, but I didn't really know what it meant. I picked up the book Traction by Gino Wickman years ago, but I didn't touch it. I don't think I was ready for it yet. I heard on a podcast, the host was talking about Rocket Fuel, which was his second book, or it's the second in the library. I'm not sure the order, but it tells the distinction between the visionary in your organization and the integrator in the organization, where the visionary is the one that steers the ship, casts the vision, big relationships, where the integrator, that's the one that is day to day. They're the one that cracks the whip, holds everybody accountable. And then they go into the whole accountability chart and everything. And this was a mind-blowing concept to me, because what I realized was, at the time, here I have all these high caliber individuals that I've had with me for, a couple years now. And I think I have a leadership team. I think I have a staff that could really carry it. And I can start looking away. And I did. What I missed was that I wasn't delegating to a leadership team. I was abdicating my role as a leader to people who really weren't suited to fulfill that role as a leader. I had high performing individuals, but I didn't have people who were hitting the leadership roles on the accountability chart that they talk about in EOS. And we were hitting our ceiling, and we were experiencing so much growth in 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. We started hot, and then it's almost like we hit a speed bump, and it took us a second. So we're in the middle of this right now. And I read Rocket Fuel and just realized this is exactly what I needed to hear. And it's been a very transitional phase for us over the last few months, but we're really working on, it talks about right people in the right seats, and making sure that you could have a person that does great. They're in the right seat, but they might not be a strong culture fit, and they're actually creating toxicity that's keeping you from getting where you need to go. And if you're a leader and you're not challenging yourself on those concepts, you're going to continue to hit that ceiling, and you might experience growth, but one day it's inevitable. You're going to burn out. You're going to hit the ceiling, and you're not going to be able to go past it. And you're not going to know why. And so it's really been an eye-opening but revolutionary process for us. And we're really being intentional about grinding through it. And I chose that word specifically because it's a grind.
It absolutely is, especially when you're growing the way that you guys are. I know, you are an athlete. Athletics have been part of your life forever. And there are just so many parallels between athletics and business. How has your background in athletics as a peak performer, as a great athlete, and as a coach transferred over to business, and how has that helped you?
Wow, man, that is a great question. I mean, it's everything. I don't know. I wouldn't be the leader that I am, because I wouldn't be the person that I am if I didn't have those experiences and those coaches and mentors to fall back on. I went to Wheaton College. My college football coach would always say religiously, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And if you're not putting in the work every day to take one step forward, you're getting worse. There is no staying the same. And just those principles and putting in the work every day, not being lazy, not being afraid to get your hands dirty. I mean, it's paid off in a lot of the races and a lot of the endurance stuff that I did. It was to compete in and of itself is to win, because you're winning against your previous self. And in order to win, you have to compete. You can't be afraid to put yourself in tough situations. You can't be afraid to put yourself in a situation where you might lose, you might get hurt, you might get bloody. But if you're afraid of doing that, you're not going to make it in this game. You just won't. And so I admire people who can come in and they might be a little more business savvy. You know, they might be better with the numbers than I am. Yeah, I don't come from that background. And so the athletics and the coaching and the leadership that I can pull from is everything to me.
How about that? What would you say, Matthew? Like, what are some of the greatest challenges you're facing right now as a company? You said you've kind of hit this speed bump. You guys are kind of figuring some things out. Has growth been a challenge? Have employees been a challenge? Have the right kind of clients been a challenge? What's been challenging over the last 6 months for you guys?
Man, yes to all those things. Let me try to knock them off one at a time. Employees is always going to be a challenge. You know, you hear a lot of, you talk the Great Recession, you know, everybody is trying to shift things up. You got a whole group of individuals that are now wanting to do things for themselves. However, there's never been a time when I was intentional with it that I wasn't able to find somebody willing to be on my team. It's all about culture and your intentionality in the hiring process. So I refuse to allow that to be an excuse for my organization. It's always going to be it's not a problem. It's always going to be a struggle and a grind and something to work through. Sometimes it might be easier than others based on the economy, but it's possible. You have to be intentional with it. And finding the right people is the number one most important thing that you're going to have to do, because people are assets, not liabilities. And as a leader and a business owner, you cannot fall into the solopreneur, I can do it by myself mindset that nobody's going to do it as good as me. Of course they're not, unless you train them and put the right people in the right place. So first, yes, people always going to be difficult, but also the most rewarding process ever. To take it back to athletics, in long distance running, there's the concept of running slow in order to be able to run fast. Running slow, going on the easy long runs allows you to build up your cardio, but also allows you to build up your the amount of durability on your legs so you can sustain, and so your heart can sustain. If you go into a race and you just sprint out the gate, but it might be a 10K, you got to run 6 miles. If you're sprinting out the gate, you're eventually going to burn out. So the concept of going slow in order to go fast is a perfect correlation in a business. You hear about people who get too excited about, squirrel, the shiny object, and they lose the one thing that they need to be focused on. And I've been guilty of that more times than I'm willing to admit. But I'm also open to being, I'm willing to be extremely open about it, because I know I've made mistakes and I know that I can grow from those mistakes and get better. But you can't be too focused on the growth, because what's it worth making $1 million if it costs you $975,000 to make the million, but you're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week? You might as well work for somebody else and have all the benefits and get the clock out and sleep at 2 a.m., because being a business owner,
and if you're working those kind of hours, you don't have the time to go spend the money anyway, if there's any left over.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Matthew, this has been incredible. I mean, as we round this out, how do people continue the conversation with you? I mean, where do they find you on social? Do they find you on LinkedIn? Have you got an email? How can people get in contact with you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. My name is Matthew McReynolds. I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes. Facebook, Instagram, social media. You can find me. I love to connect with people in the pest control industry, but also business owners, leaders, aspiring business owners in general. My background is in coaching and mentoring. So if I can be a resource to anybody, I'd love to.
It's in your blood. It's been in your blood for a long, long time, since you were a kid.
Yes, sir.
Matthew, thank you so much for coming on. All of you that are listening and tuning in, thank you so much for patching in each week. And until the next one, create a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.